James Madison looks to be a very good college football team this year and should compete to be the G5 champion to go to the college football playoff. But they still dropped a game to Louisville. So, what did we learn from that? First off, starting with Louisville. Louisville got started slowly, and I would say that's a concern, but this was really their first game against considerable competition, so I don't know how much you want to knock that. As I talked about in the recap for week one, there really was a bunch of teams where their first drive or drives of the game kind of lied to us about what the teams would turn out to be throughout the rest of the game, and maybe that was just a settling in period. But it looks like Louisville has the weapons on offense. Now, on the other hand, in terms of talking about the quarterback for Louisville, Miller Moss, for what was discussed with him initially when he got his first start at USC in their bowl game a few years ago, I really was underwhelmed with him. And not to stereotype too much, but watching fun college football quarterbacks play recently, like Byron Brown for another great G5 team in South Florida, or Haynes King, where you've got some quarterbacks that are just willing to put their body on the line for anything. Miller Moss looks like he plays a little timid out there, and that a little bit of that Southern California vibe, even though I don't know where he's from. I just know he was at USC before this. And that's not something I love. I don't like that timid factor in the QB, just because he had a rushing touchdown tonight, but it really did not inspire much in terms of physicality or anything like that. But passing wise, he was okay. He was all right. I just worry about them distributing the ball. On the other side of the ball for the defense, I would say I was pretty disappointed, especially because of the fact that James Madison runs a dual quarterback system, and you actually could tell basically for the first 3 quarters of the game whether they were going to run or pass the ball based on what quarterback was in the game, and they really still had a relatively difficult time slowing the team down. That was not a great look for Louisville. But Louisville does come out on top, and it was because of 3 big plays. A defensive sack that was a forced fumble that was recovered in the end zone for a touchdown for Louisville, a 70-plus yard passing touchdown, and a 70-plus yard rushing touchdown, or at least roughly those lengths. And if they can get big plays like that all season, that's not going to be a problem. The problem is, on a down-in, down-out basis, it looked like James Madison was the better team tonight. And now talking about it from a JMU perspective, James Madison looked really good on both lines of scrimmage. Offensive line and defensive line, I would have given them the nod over Louisville competing in those battles. And that was really interesting to see, because that doesn't seem like it should be the case between an ACC team and a G5 team. But with that being said, I think that's like the number one thing you can take away for JMU. But the tough thing is just knowing that with how they played their offense today, they really did pretty much stick to Matthew Sluka is going to be the quarterback in the game when we're going to run the ball and run the ball with our quarterback. And on the other hand, the other, number 14, is going to be in the game. I just don't want to mispronounce his name. Number 14 is going to be in the game when we're throwing the ball. So I don't love that. And the other thing is, I think always everybody probably wants to go more, so just natural fan inclination, go to the guy with more athleticism. And since 14 had the knee injury last year, that would make sense that you would want to go to Matthew Sluka. With that being said, though, I don't love how little they were willing to even attempt passes with Sluka. That just felt like they do not trust him at all. And I mean, comparing it to a game the other night with UNC and Gio Lopez, just whenever it feels like a coaching staff does not trust a quarterback to throw the ball, there's usually a pretty good reason. But the few times Sluka did throw the ball, it looked okay. So it felt really weird having him not attempt passes at all, but he absolutely was a great running threat. If I were the coach, just from the 1-game sample size of what I watched at JMU, I would really see if we could get Sluka settled into this system and try to create a minimal passing game with him to try to make him the starting quarterback. Because I just think it was the drop back pass game was just tough to watch when 14 was out on the field playing QB, and he could get sacked really, really quickly, because not only because Louisville should theoretically have better talent than JMU does on the O-line, but even more so because of the lack of athleticism that may be a result from his injury, or that just may be the type of player he is that doesn't have tremendous athleticism. There was one play where it was absolutely insane, where there's a nickel blitz coming directly at the quarterback for JMU, and it's when 14's in the game, and he has the blitzer coming directly at him, and I've never seen a quarterback simultaneously not give themselves up for a sack, but also not attempt to make a move on the defender. Like, he just stood completely flat-footed and was like, boy, oh boy, I hope I can throw this ball before he hits me, and then he just leveled him. So that was a pretty interesting thing to see. But then the missed opportunities. The first play of the game, throw a backwards pass to the receiver, have a wide open receiver down the field that should go for a touchdown, and that doesn't go. And then on the other side of things, you have things like you get backed up. I think it was after some penalties, and you fumble the ball, and Louisville recovers it for a touchdown. And it's like, if you just look at that right there, that's 14 points, and that's what they lost by. And it didn't really feel like it didn't feel like I said Louisville earned those drives, because three scores, they scored 28 points tonight, and 3 scores were just individual horrible plays. And there's one score for James Madison that should have been on the board that was just so tough to have that receiver wide open right at the beginning of the game on the backwards pass to the other receiver to throw it down the field, and he just misses him. And it's like, all those plays together, it really feels like James Madison should have won the game tonight, and that hurts tonight. But I think if you're a James Madison fan, you can take solace in the fact that you are going to be a competitor in your conference, and you may even be a competitor to get into the college football playoff. Because a 14-point loss to one Power 4 school is not likely to be the reason that you would be left out. So that's a good thing. And for the Louisville side of things, you started very slow, but the big plays you created in the game were the difference. So props to you for that. You're going to need to look a lot better the rest of the season, because your competition is mostly going to be better than that the rest of the season. So that being said, congrats to Louisville, but also don't feel too bad if you're a JMU fan. I think you could really have a special season brewing. We'll see where it goes from here. And by the way, if you're a recruit and you ain't headed to Florida State, what you doing?
So, if you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching.
2020 president candidate.